Good evening. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Poonam Burde. World leaders converged in Kazan and Russia for the Brics summit in a bid to realign the world order that is dominated by the West. At the plenary that was held a short while ago, Prime Minister Modi sent out an unambiguous message to those present and also to those who are eyeing an entry in this grouping. He said that there is no place for double standards on issues like terrorism and terror financing. He also spoke of radicalization among youth and the grouping needing to take steps to prevent just that. This message comes at a time when expansion of Brics is on the agenda and Pakistan is pushing forward with its long-standing bid for a Brics membership. That perhaps set the tone for what was to come right after that on the docket for the Prime Minister. A sit-down with China, which is currently underway. A bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping comes after 5 years after they last met. It also comes 4 years since the two countries were engaged in the worst clash that India and China have seen at the line of actual control. Now, ties have been frosty since 2020. Not long ago, if you remember, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said that ties were significantly disturbed since China's unilateral overture in eastern Ladakh. But with disengagement now at the line of actual control, that deal being done and diplomacy playing its role at the highest levels, ties seem to be on the mend. Stable relations are very much needed for both countries because it is in the benefit of both those countries to have stable bilateral ties and also have a stable neighborhood. Because that's exactly what we're looking at, a stable Southeast Asia, Indo-Pacific, even though China does not like that term, is required. And for that, India and China have to be at peace. Trade is continuing, of course, between the two countries. That will only boost economies on both sides, and both countries need that to stay. A unified fight for the global south is also what's required, especially at a time when China is trying to realign itself, trying to be the leader of the pack as far as a global realignment is concerned. It also strengthens civilizational connect between the two countries, and there are many aspects of that. Infrastructure development is also what collaboration is being looked at, and both countries could benefit in terms of development as well. But can China be trusted? To say the very least, India has to be wary of Beijing and its misadventures because they've done many of them in the past. 1962 still remains China's biggest betrayals as far as India is concerned. China continues to claim Arunachal as disputed territory or as its own and renames villages that are very well within India's territory. China on many occasions has violated policy with stamped visas to Arunachal residents. This despite India raising a protest, lodging a strong one multiple times. Closer ties with Pakistan. Remember, China and Pakistan are fair weather allies. They want to try and contain India, which is also why we see a fight on both the frontiers as far as India goes. That's also something that India needs to be wary of. The growing influence on Nepal is a concern for India. There's trouble that's fomenting in Bangladesh, in another country in our neighborhood. So India needs to be wary of where and how China will try and needle us. China's apparent abhorrence towards the Quad is also of concern. China has often spoken of out of turn when it comes to the Quad and raised questions of why this grouping exists in the first place. So even as we see that key bilateral between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi take place, as far as resetting or rebooting of ties between the two countries is concerned, is it going to be advantage India? We decode that.
ब्रिक्स विश्व की 40% मानवता और लगभग 30% अर्थव्यवस्था का प्रतिनिधित्व करता है। यह संगठन वैश्विक चुनौतियों का सामना करने के लिए और अधिक प्रभावी माध्यम बनकर के उभरेगा। हमारी विविधता और मल्टीपोलैरिटी में हमारा दृढ़ विश्वास हमारी ताकत है।
Let's open this up. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Kazan. He's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. That bilateral is underway as we speak. We'll soon be getting pictures and perhaps a sense of what the two leaders are discussing. But why is this important? What India stands to gain out of this? Manju Seth, former diplomat, joins us on this broadcast to decode that. Retired Colonel S. Dini, former CEO of Infantry Battalion in Pangong Tso area, is with us as well. And an expert on Chinese affairs, Jennifer Zhang, is with us as well. As far as the LAC is concerned, which is why I want to get in Colonel Dini in first, we've seen the kind of overtures that China has made on the eastern front, both in eastern Ladakh and even in Arunachal Pradesh on multiple occasions. Now we're seeing a deal on disengagement that is finalized. But can China be trusted? Because we're yet to know what nitty-gritties are of this deal that are yet to come out.
Ma'am, yes, definitely. The past history, shows that there have been instances where Chinese have gone back on whatever they had agreed and leading to a lot of mistrust. But as of now, what we see is definitely post the 2020 clash, there has been a steady, I would say that desire from both sides to bring to as fast as possible a normalization along the line of actual control. In that sense, this particular agreement, which was brought out day before yesterday, that the remaining areas wherever the troops were in close proximity, the disengagement will now take place, followed by patrolling to those points as was done in April 2020. So I find it's a positive thing. We have to be careful going ahead. There is a lot of work yet to be done for complete normalization along the line of actual control. But I feel that there is there is much more transparency as far as issues goes, because of what has happened before, whatever in April 2020. Now, when this agreement is being implemented on ground, it will be verified and then again verification, followed by then going step by step ahead. So yes, definitely there is a trust deficiency. There's no doubt. But I think the way forward is that we have to move with that trust deficiency. We cannot do away with that, but we have to move ahead so that normalcy and peace and tranquility can be restored along the line of actual control.
A mutual trust coming in from both sides, because that is what seems to be lacking both at the military level and at the diplomatic levels. In the last 5 years, we've seen that there's a lot of water that has flown under the bridge, but can we look beyond it? Can we go back to the camaraderie perhaps that both leaders had 5 years ago? Because China walking the talk on sticking to its agreements is very, very important to this deal holding up. Zanifa Jain?
Yes, sorry. I think to your question, can China be trusted? I think that answer is no matter what, it's a definitely no. Because if you look at this Chinese Communist Party's history, it never stick to its words or to its agreement. Even especially with Hong Kong, it says it's a historic document. Even when Deng Xiaoping claimed that we will keep the Hong Kong's democracy or their way of life for 50 years, but only after 20-some years. Hong Kong is now become a totally inland center, like an inland city, like all other Chinese centers. Of course, why the CCP is currently seem like making some concession to India, I think number one, India has been very firm in its dealing with the CCP. I think that is a great way to deal with the CCP. Never be threatened or intimidated by it. And of course, I think if you look at the bigger picture, the CCP currently is under great pressure, even internationally and domestically. So maybe the CCP is just doing this to solve its own or to ease its own pressure. But as soon as its pressure is eased or anything changed, it can go back to its old ways. It needs to show the Chinese people it is tougher. It's a tougher leader. So for the Chinese people to follow them. And sometimes, of course, there is competition between these two in terms of population, biggest country in the world, and in terms of different value system. So the CCP always want to convince the Chinese people that China's model of governance is better than India. So in that way, it will always regard India as a threat and an embarrassment to the CCP. So because of this, I think, very basic value system, whether you choose democracy or dictatorship, if this does not change, India could always be seen as the CCP as something not really to be on a friendly term, because the existing and especially the development of India itself poses a threat to the CCP's model of governance.
Manju said, then, is that a double-edged sword as far as India is concerned? Because A, we already have the track record and that China is known to make unilateral changes, and B, if there are really under pressure internally, like Jennifer was also pointing out, they would want to put on a more upfront of bravado, want to try and be more belligerent in front of their own in front of their own domestic audiences for their political gains. Wouldn't then that be worse for India to ensure that China does keep its end of the bargain?
Absolutely, it's going to be a big challenge. While this is to be welcomed that this arrangement has been agreed to, but yes, we cannot trust China and how much it will agree, because now, agree on the ground to rectify the situation. We are in a difficult spot at the moment. Yes, agreement for the arrangement has been reached, but how will they implement it on the ground? Will they move back? What will they do? Will they allow full access again to the Indian side for for patrolling rights? They've said we have agreed to it, but we don't know to what extent it will be implemented on the ground, especially by the Chinese side, given that they have a history of seeing, of committing and then seeing whether they want to go ahead with it or not. Because I think they perceive it in their interest to keep India sort of on the, to keep needling India, as you rightly said in the beginning. They like to do that so that, India does not. And as Jennifer also said, they do not want to send a message. They want to send a message to their people that India cannot be better than us. Their growth model, they cannot match us. They cannot match our might, our economic clout, etc. But yes, right now there are economic issues within the country. Externally, China is facing quite a lot of problems. So they would like, and also their, their sort of so-called debt diplomacy around the world, the BRI projects, etc. All of them are not doing so well. There are some sort of obstacles coming in the way. They were expecting everything would happen very quickly, but it hasn't gone the way that they planned. So I think they all these factors, and of course India putting some kind of restrictions on their investments and on trade, all these factors have played a role in China rethinking its approach to this long-standing issue. And of course, the many rounds of diplomatic and military talks that have gone on over the last few years, all that has resulted in some kind of resolution, finding a resolution to this issue, and we hope that it will be implemented. But yes, we have to be cautious. We have to approach this with a very careful kind of, welcome, should I say, and see if we can, ensure that it's more long term. But I'm not sure it will be very long term. We cannot say, because if China decides that, it's not in their interest to go ahead with it fully, they will do according. They will, take action accordingly. So I think India has to be very careful and cautious with the agreement, and restoring trust with China is going to be a little difficult given the past history. But I think China might want it to be trusted. So let's see if it's how its actions are in the coming months.
Also, having India on its side, Jennifer, would be important for China as well. We are seeing there is a different kind of regrouping or different kind of realignment that's happening worldwide. India is also sending the message that, it's not just the West, but we have friends elsewhere, and we're not scared to use them when it comes to putting India's interests first. So having India on China's side is also important for China to try and put out a message to the world that there is a possibility that there could be realignment that is not dominated by the West.
Of course, I think the establish of the BRICS itself is some kind of another organization opposed to what is existing or dominated by the West. I just read this Xi Jinping's full speech at the BRICS meeting. So I think in his speech he emphasizes we want a peaceful BRICS, we want a green BRICS, we want innovation, and this and that. He also talks about they were established 10 overseas learning center and to provide the opportunities to 1,000 educational whatever staff for the training. I think, of course, at the in terms of the current situation and the challenge the CCP is facing, to have a stable relationship with India will, of course, do it good. The trade, in recent years, because of the tension, the trade between India and China has been decreased. And I think this, of course, from the trade issue, it will want to increase. And more importantly, I think the dominating issue for the CCP and especially for Xi Jinping is Taiwan, and also the relationship with Russia, and so it was revealed that the CCP, Russia, and North Korea has reached some kind of secret agreement for the North Korea to send 100,000 special troops to assist Russia in its battle with the Ukraine. The CCP were going to equip to provide all military gears for this 100,000 North Korea soldiers. So for the CCP, the big picture is it wants to keep the war between Russia and Ukraine going, and also it wants to keep the U.S. busy in the Middle East. That's why it has been assisting Hamas, Hezbollah in Middle East. So to keep the U.S. busy, so it can, when it decided to take on or attack Taiwan, it has the opportunity to win that war immediately, so that the Xi Jinping can gain his forever leadership in the party, and that's and also to bring China into a war status could be the only solution they see for its all kind of crisis inside China. So to achieve this dominating goal, I think a stable relationship, especially a peaceful relationship with India, is important to China, so they don't have to face a double war in both sides of China.
Absolutely. And as far as the LAC is concerned, Colonel Denny, this is just one aspect of it. This is the 1D of the 3 Ds that we want to focus on. Disengagement is what is the deal that has been agreed upon. We're still yet to get details of what exactly that entails, because we know that patrolling rights have been granted to both sides, but till what point do we go in that patrolling? Because that is something that China had also unilaterally tried to change. But the other 2 aspects, as far as de-escalation and de-induction or demilitarization is concerned, is that going to be a long road ahead? Or do you think now that we're seeing bilateral ties at the highest levels with President Xi Jinping meeting Prime Minister, that could be fast forwarded as well?
Ma'am, I do believe that it will take some time for the complete normalization of the situation along the line of actual control. As you rightly mentioned, that this is the first step. The disengagement process would be completed at the last remaining 2 friction points of Depsang and Demchok after this agreement, which was reached day before yesterday. Now, after that, yes, there has to be de-escalation which has to take place. For that, patrolling and such like confidence building measures has to be taken on ground along the line of actual control. And simultaneously, or maybe after that, there will be a de-induction process which will take place. And then probably we can, take a realistic assessment or make a realistic assessment that now, yes, the things have normalized. But till that time, it is, situations, it will be very difficult to predict that everything will be smooth. because we have seen that okay, this area we have now taken care of, but the entire border with India, with China is something which is, has always been, there is a dispute somewhere or the other. So sometimes it could well happen that in some other area something else can come up. So we have to be very cautious, and I think that is fairly understood at the tactical level, at the ground level, that whatever we do with China, we have to be extra cautious, because they say something, they do something, all those things are there. But I think today we are much more better placed, I would say, along the line of actual control, because last 4 years the kind of infrastructure development, the kind of force build up which we have been able to do, gives us the confidence to take on any situation. So I think that is one of the important factors due to which China today agreed to pull back. So given the condition in which we are, it will take some time for complete normalization, but I think the process is well on its course.
The wheels have been set in motion, at least as far as getting those ties back on track are concerned, Manju Seth. And we're seeing the Prime Minister meet President Xi Jinping after 5 long years. But these are two leaders that shared a certain kind of camaraderie and rapport. The Prime Minister has made multiple visits to China, if I'm not mistaken. He's an Indian politician, Indian Prime Minister, who's made the maximum number of visits to China. And we've seen President Xi Jinping being welcomed here in India as well. That kind of rapport, is that something you think these two leaders can go back to after what's happened in the last 5 years?
No, I don't think it will be back to that level. But yes, there can be a thaw in the ties, and a little more friendly ties, let me say. But I don't think they can go back to that level. Because as they say, once bitten, twice shy. India would be very, very careful about getting back to the same level of camaraderie and that closeness that we had with China, because we don't know. Now I think it happened with our former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru also many, many years ago, when suddenly after saying everything was okay, they attacked us in 1962. So it's a little, China's mindset has always been a little different, and we can't always take them at face value, and we cannot be sure that what they will do exactly what they say, because sometimes they do, sometimes they do not. And again, as I said, it's that they perceive that self-interest in doing so. They think that's the way they need to conduct their international relations, their foreign policy, and they feel that needling India, keeping India a little bit, putting India down so it doesn't sort of have any sort of competition and does not compete with China. I think that is one of their aims as well. But yes, as things are evolving, rapidly changing, the geopolitical situation is changing, shifts are taking place. They're also recalibrating and rethinking their relationship. With Russia, they had, there was literally a cold war between the two countries for many years. They've got back together now. And, so things can change. It's an evolving situation. No permanent friends, no permanent enemies, as they say. So I think it may not get back to that same level, at least in the near future. But we cannot be sure if things, evolve and things change, given that the kind of challenges that that India faces and all countries are facing at this point of time. When the situation will change and how things will be recalibrated, we cannot say. But I'm not sure it will get back to the same, level that it was at before.
Once bitten, twice shy, but there's hope, and there seems to be a thaw in ties. There is seemingly a mend as far as the two countries are concerned. We hope that continues, especially after this bilateral meeting between the two leaders. What we're learning is that the bilateral in Kazan between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi has just concluded. We'll get more details coming out. But as we get you those details, I want to get in Zenifer Zheng in as well. As far as the Chinese side is concerned, we've discussed what their domestic compulsions may be. But why is it that we see this kind of flip-flop, so to say? Because there is, on one hand, they want to try and put this front of bravado. On the other, it looks like China has blinked, or has been the first one to blink as far as this instance goes.
I think its domestic challenge is too much. There's also another possibility. There has been always rumors for the past several months that Xi Jinping suffered a stroke during the third plenary meeting, and that after that he got some setback or got some pushback from other forces in the party, and so they are gradually trying to fade him out of Chinese politics. So that's why you see some kind of softened status in some of international affairs and as well as domestic policy. But those are all, of course, just rumors. I think in terms of its official media rhetoric about relationship with India. Just before this interview, I checked the Chinese media. One, they didn't report anything about this upcoming talk with Modi. And if I search on Baidu with the keywords Brics and India, all the articles come up about a very anti-India either reports or commentators, and all blaming India as want to dominate BRICS or want to push their agenda into this BRICS. So all very hostile articles against India. So I think at this stage, China's internal politics is at a very unstable stage. So we do have to watch very closely as to what happened. As the other two guests said, we can't take anything out of China on the just face value. There could be a lot of other things going on underneath the black box operation of the Chinese politics.
I request all three of you to stay on with us. These are visuals that are coming in from Kazan in Russia, where the bilateral meeting between the two countries, between President Xi Jinping of China and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has just about concluded.
दोनों की मुलाकात की तस्वीरें और दोनों नेताओं के बीच ये मुलाकात रूस के कजान शहर में हुई है। दोनों नेताओं के बीच
a firm handshake there right before the bilateral meeting began. We see the two leaders sit down with their teams on both sides. Several issues were...
to meet you in Kazan. It's the first time for us to have a formal meeting in 5 years' time. Both the people in our two countries and the international community are paying great attention to our meeting. China and India are both ancient civilizations, major developing countries, and important members of the global South. We are both at a crucial phase in our respective modernization endeavors. It best serves the fundamental interests of our two countries and two peoples, for both sides to keep to the trend of history and the right direction of our bilateral relations. It's important for both sides to have more communication and cooperation, properly handle our differences and disagreements, and to facilitate each other's pursuit of development aspirations. It's also important for both sides to shoulder our international responsibility, set an example for boosting the strength and unity of the developing countries, and to contribute to promoting multipolarization and democracy in international relations.
我愿同总理先生就两国关系和共同关心的问题交换意见。
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm prepared to exchange views with Your Excellency on our bilateral relationship and issues of mutual interest.
Excellency, आपसे मिलकर खुशी है और जैसा आपने कहा 5 साल के बाद हमारी ये फॉर्मल मीटिंग हो रही है। हमारा मानना है कि भारत और चीन के संबंधों का महत्व केवल हमारे लोगों के लिए ही नहीं, लेकिन वैश्विक शांति, स्थिरता और प्रगति के लिए भी हमारे संबंध बहुत अहम है। एक्सेलेंसी, सीमा पार पिछले 4 वर्षों में उत्पन्न हुए मुद्दों पर बनी सहमति का हम स्वागत करते हैं। सीमा पर शांति और स्थिरता बनाए रखना हमारी प्राथमिकता रहनी चाहिए। म्यूचुअल ट्रस्ट, म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट और म्यूचुअल सेंसिटिविटी हमारे संबंधों का आधार बने रहना चाहिए। आज इन सभी विषयों पर बात करने का अवसर मिला है। मुझे विश्वास है कि हम खुले मन से बातचीत करेंगे और हमारी चर्चा कंस्ट्रक्टिव होगी। धन्यवाद।
तो दोनों नेताओं के बीच ये मुलाकात हुई है रूस के
remarks of both those leaders there before the bilateral. The Prime Minister making it very clear that what's transpired at the line of actual control in the last 4 years needs to be amended. We welcome the step that has been taken as far as disengagement at the line of actual control is concerned. Mutual trust and respect is required. Mutual sensitivity is also key to ensure that there is stability at the line of actual control, was a clear message that the Prime Minister sent out during that bilateral meeting. Several other issues, of course, did come up, but the situation at the line of actual control is one that focus is going to be on, because that is going to decide the course of what else is discussed and the outcome of everything else, because this, of course, is going to be of topmost priority. Relations between India and China needs to be stable, not just for the two countries, but also for global peace, is what the Prime Minister said. Let's listen into that comment once again.
एक्सेलेंसी, आपसे मिलकर खुशी है, और जैसा आपने कहा 5 साल के बाद हमारी फॉर्मल मीटिंग हो रही है। हमारा मानना है कि भारत और चीन के संबंधों का महत्व केवल हमारे लोगों के लिए ही नहीं, लेकिन वैश्विक शांति, स्थिरता और प्रगति के लिए भी हमारे संबंध बहुत अहम है। एक्सेलेंसी, सीमा पार पिछले 4 वर्षों में उत्पन्न हुए मुद्दों पर बनी सहमति का हम स्वागत करते हैं। सीमा पर शांति और स्थिरता बनाए रखना हमारी प्राथमिकता रहनी चाहिए। म्यूचुअल ट्रस्ट, म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट और म्यूचुअल सेंसिटिविटी हमारे संबंधों का आधार बने रहना चाहिए। आज इन सभी विषयों पर बात करने का अवसर मिला है। मुझे विश्वास है कि हम खुले मन से बातचीत करेंगे और हमारी चर्चा कंस्ट्रक्टिव होगी। धन्यवाद।
That was the Prime Minister there, unequivocally mentioning the line of actual control and the ties between the two countries, hinging on the fact that the situation at the line of actual control must be stable, and for that, mutual trust, mutual respect and mutual sensitivity is of utmost importance. Manju Seth and Colonel Dinny continue to be with us. Manju Seth, if you heard both the comments that came to the fore, it's interesting the kind of comments that came to the fore from Xi Jinping. But Prime Minister Modi was very clear. We want to talk about one subject and everything else will follow based on how you respond to that. And that's bettering situations at the LAC and ensuring that there is mutual trust and respect coming in as far as the LAC situation is concerned.
Absolutely. And he put it very clearly and I think unambiguously, and that is a very positive development in our bilateral ties, where we are able to very clearly convey our concerns, convey our views. And for the Chinese, yes, they will talk always of other things, but yes, mutual trust, respect, I think that is very, very important in any relationship. And that was sort of undermined by the Chinese side in the last so many years, and especially in 2020. So I think it has been very clearly, and I think they've understood also, maybe, and they realize that, yes, India is not the India of, so many years ago of the 60s when India got, it cowed down and it said, okay, it doesn't matter. And, we allowed China to have to get away with many things. But now I think we want to talk to them, if not on an equal footing, at least from a position of strength. China also wants to talk from a position of strength, I think, and they want to convey to India very clearly that, we are the stronger nation, the bigger partner. You cannot, get away with what you want. So they are trying to put that messaging first. They want us to understand that, and I think we want them to understand that we would like to speak at an even level, at the same level, and to first establish trust and respect, and to also to respect each other's sensitivities. It should not be a one-way street. Both sides need to do that. And while India tries to be very, tries to be aware of their sensitivities at everywhere where, wherever we are in all other multilateral forums, China unfortunately has not shown the same degree of concern for India's sensitivities. But we hope that after this meeting, at least to some extent, but as I said, it cannot be in the long term. We cannot trust China in the long term. But yes, I think in the immediate future, there is a possibility that there will be a slight change in China's approach to its relationship with India. But of course, keeping in mind their own interests and keeping in mind their own priorities in all this.
Sure, their priorities will take precedence, but India has made it clear that LAC is important and situation should be better at the LAC, not just for the two countries, Colonel Dinny, but also for the region and the world's stability. India has made that clear that there is no compromise as far as now the first step being de-escalation, disengagement is concerned, which eventually will lead to de-escalation. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Friends, I welcome you to this special briefing by Foreign Secretary Sri Vikram Mishri on the developments of the day involving Prime Minister's engagement in the 16th Brics Summit. We are also joined on dais by Sri Damu Ravi, who is Secretary Economic Relations and also Sherpa for Brics for India. We also have Ambassador of India to Russia, Ambassador Vinay Kumar, joining us on the dais, as also Sri Abhishek Singh, who looks after multi-economic relations in the Ministry of External Affairs. I would also like to tell all of you that the language for this briefing is only English and Hindi, so please bear with us. With that, I invite the Foreign Secretary to make his remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Randir. Good afternoon, friends. I have the opportunity to brief you on the Prime Minister's main bilateral engagement today on the sidelines of the 16th Brics Summit. My colleague, Secretary Economic Relations in the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Damu Ravi, who is also our Sherpa for Brics, will make some comments with regard to the Brics engagements. But let me say a few words about the Prime Minister's meeting with His Excellency President Xi Jinping, the President of the People's Republic of China. We have also put out a press release which should be available very shortly on the website of the Ministry of External Affairs if it is not there already. So as you all know, earlier today, in fact just a short while ago, Prime Minister Modi met with President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the 16th Brics Summit. This was their first proper bilateral meeting at delegation level in nearly 5 years, the last one being on the sidelines of the Brics Summit in Brasilia in 2019. So let me just flag some points made by the two leaders during their meeting. This meeting happened, as you are all aware, close on the heels of the disengagement and patrolling agreement and the resolution of issues that had arisen in the India-China border areas in 2020. Naturally, the two leaders welcomed the agreement reached between the two sides through sustained dialogue over the last several weeks in diplomatic as well as military channels. Prime Minister Modi underscored the importance of not allowing differences on boundary-related matters to disturb peace and tranquility on our borders. And in this context, the two leaders noted that the special representatives on the India-China boundary question have a critical role to play in the resolution of the boundary question and for the maintenance of peace and tranquility in the border areas. Accordingly, they instructed the special representatives to meet at an early date and to continue their efforts in this regard. You may recall that Special Representative of India, Mr. Ajit Doval, who is also the National Security Advisor, and the Special Representative of the People's Republic of China, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, also a member of the Politburo, have met on the sidelines of international events, but they have not had a round of talks in the Special Representatives format since December 2019. So following today's meeting, we hope to schedule the next round of the SR's talks at an appropriate date. The two leaders also reviewed the state of bilateral relations from a strategic and long-term perspective. They were of the view that stable bilateral relations between India and China, the two largest nations on earth, will have a positive impact on regional and global peace and prosperity. And both of them stressed that with maturity and wisdom, and by showing mutual respect for each other's sensitivities, interests, concerns, and aspirations, the two countries can have a peaceful, stable, and beneficial bilateral relationship. As we have maintained during the last 4 years, the restoration of peace and tranquility in the border areas will create space for returning us towards the path of normalization of our bilateral relations. Officials will now take the next steps to discuss enhancing strategic communication and stabilizing bilateral relations by utilizing the relevant official bilateral dialogue mechanisms, including at the level of our respective foreign ministers. The two leaders also briefly reviewed regional and international developments of mutual concern and interest. They agreed to maintain close communication in this regard. Naturally, they also had a very productive exchange on Brics and the potential for India and China to enhance cooperation on this particular platform. And in closing, Prime Minister Modi also assured India's full support to China's SCO presidency next year in 2025. Let me stop there and request my colleague, our Sherpa for Brics, to make a few remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. I'll be very brief in the interest of the time. But let me just focus on the Honorable Prime Minister's visit to Kazan for the 16th Brics Summit, which was at the invitation of President Putin. The theme of the Brics Summit, as you all know, that strengthening multilateralism for just global development and security. Today, there have been two sessions in which Prime Minister participated. One is a closed plenary session, and the second one is open plenary session. Open plenary session included also representatives of businesses of all the member countries, as well as the financial institution representatives in the open session. At the end of the open session, the leaders adopted the Kazan Declaration, and the declaration captures the various elements and diverse elements discussed by the leaders during these sessions. It recognizes the reform for the UN and multilateral institutions. In particular, it recognizes the Johannesburg Declaration and reaffirmed the support for member countries' aspiration to be permanent members of the UN Security Council. Cooperation in the financial sector was another element, which also included elements like payment settlements in national currencies, And climate change was another area of interest for all the leaders. There was a lot of views expressed, and also combating terrorism. Prime Minister, in his remarks, clearly brought out the importance of people-centric Brics cooperation. That was his emphasis. And the fact that the leaders have agreed to finalize list of partner countries in the expanded Brics membership, it was welcomed. The modalities have also been finalized. So with the expansion of the Brics, as you all know, that this is the first time that Brics in an expanded format are meeting. The 9 members currently which have met this time. So you will have an additional partner countries. The list will be out in the net. So what it means to us is also inclusivity, diversity in the Brics, and brings in the dimension of the global South right in the center of the Brics discussions and discourse. So development becomes central. Prime Minister's remarks included the importance of global South. He also mentioned about the India's initiatives that have been appreciated within Brics. For example, the Startup Forum, the skilled workforce, the Research and Development Vaccine Center, digital health, and the digital public infrastructure solutions, which are low-cost solutions for the interest of the countries of the global South.